Andrew Rickson's review from the DWRG for State of Decay. No, not Dracula, please, published on the 23rd of the 11th, 2000. The recent rad versus trad debate really passed me by, but I couldn't help but notice the way that dear old Terence Dicks, by common assent, was adopted by all concerned as a touchstone of tradness. Personally, I remain convinced his strengths are as a script editor rather than a writer, but he's got his name on an awful lot of TV scripts, and most of them are pretty good. Given that the main bone of contention was basically whether or not trad was bad, how can this be? Looking at State of Decay again now, one is struck by the realization that this is just about as trad as Doctor Who gets. Oppressive tyrants, downtrodden and rather hairy rebels, some wibbly special effects, and a surprising amount of horror for a Saturday teen time show. All in all, rather less stimulating than horror of Fang Rock, the story written to replace this one when it was put into turnaround in 1977. There's nothing much particularly wrong with or unusually bad about the story, it's just not in the first rank somehow. Perhaps the key to why it seems a bit disappointing lies in its protracted genesis. It was commissioned as the first story of season 15, presumably while Hinchcliffe and Holmes were still at the wheel, hence the pastiche of vampire legends in particular and Hammer's 1960s and 70s film series in particular. There was presumably some rewriting after Hinchcliffe's departure to reduce the gothic quotient, and then the script spent 3 years on the shelf before being reactivated by an incoming production team desperate for material. So we end up with a gothic Hammer horror pastiche script, if added jokes, produced by a production team intent on avoiding raids on literature and upping the hard SF content. Brothers and sisters, if one story exemplifies the Tom Baker era in its entirety, this is it. All the usual Bidmead Season 18 motifs occur here. The Doctor and Romana frequently refer to themselves as scientists, much jargonese appears. What exactly is a sociopathic abscess anyway? The visiting cast, almost without exceptions, resolutely play the archist, dialogue absolutely straight. If anything, this is the story's major flaw. Rather than full-bloodedly, following the script's natural inclination towards ever so slightly camp melodrama, very late Hammer that this is treated as a straight drama. Production and script are pulling in different directions and neither benefit, and so potentially witty dialogue falls flat on its face and scenes that could have been amusingly arch and entertainingly hammy just come across as drab and cliched. It's rather like watching a bunch of farmers perform Gold Diggers of 1937 down the local village hall. You can tell there's quite a promising script, but it's been poleaxed by lumpenly indelicate acting and production. All is not lost. Emery's James rises above the lines he's given to turn into a mesmerizing performance as possibly the season's best villain. The direction is occasionally surprisingly imaginative, the obvious example being the slow mix through from Orcon to the slow-mo bat in the first episode. The score is as professional as any in the season, if not quite loud enough to drown out the clang of dialogue being badly performed. And of course, Tom and Lala seem charmingly besotted with one another. Adric, on the other hand, might as well walk around with a placard saying, "I wasn't in the original script and have been added at the last minute." But let's face it, the script would have been much better realised a couple of seasons earlier. As it is, the cry of "No, not Dracula, please" comes from the production team as well as the Doctor. Their lack of enthusiasm is palpable, and that's a shame. The lesson here is surely to capitalise on each script's own merits rather than imposing your own agenda on them. So in the end, this isn't Terence Dicks' finest TV hour and a half by any means, but don't blame the script for that.